We all have something great inside us. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Move the Chains podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Muncie. I'm glad you're here for this episode. Our guest today, from Hollywood film sets to Silicon Valley startups, has seen every version of teamwork, from chaotic to world-class. Stephen Puri is here to teach us how focus, flow states, dopamine management, and healthy productivity can be your superpower for achievement without burnout. Sneak peek of a couple of upcoming takeaways from this one. We're going to talk about how to engineer flow states that make remote teams unstoppable, and you as an individual as well. We're going to talk about dopamine management and how that's the secret weapon of top performers. We'll talk about simple daily rituals that prevent burnout and amplify your output. This is going to be a lot of fun. Stephen is one of the few people who has been a senior executive at two, not one, but two motion picture studios, has raised over 20 million of venture capital, run multiple startups. Stephen, welcome to the Move the Chains podcast.
Amazing intro. I hope the episode lives up to whatever expectations people have as they're driving their car thinking, is this going to be one of Ryan's good ones? Let's make it a good one.
Let's make it a good one, Stephen. So let's dive in. I mean, your bio is incredible. You went from producing major films like Die Hard and the Wolverine to raising
a studio executive. Let me be clear. I was the evil studio executive at Fox working on those. Yes.
So explain that to us. I mean, what does the evil studio executive? What's your role in a film like that?
Oh, okay. That is an excellent question. Okay, so before we dive into the fun stuff about flow states and dopamine management, let me talk to you about film studios. The way studios are set up is there are a slate of projects that the studio has that they believe will make money. These are for-profit ventures, right? So let us say the studio has 400 projects that are anything from, hey, books, we bought the rights to make the movie. We bought Harry Potter. We should make the rights. We should make the movie from that. To video games, to original scripts by this Ryan Muncie writer guy that, we liked his script, it's all sorts. So you have all of these different projects. And then you have the studio like Crown Jewels, we have the Lucas Arts, Lucasfilm, we have all the Pixar stuff. Oh, we have all the Marvel characters, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're continually balancing how do we spend our $1 billion+ of production money on this slate of films. Mm-hmm. So the way a studio is set up is you basically have, like a chairman, chairwoman, mm-hmm. and they have to greenlight between 12 and 24 movies for a major studio, right? So about one a month, two a month, depending on, how big the studio is. In order to manage all those 400 projects, you have a bunch of senior executives, vice presidents of different flavors, SVP, EVP, VP, right? At the studio. And that slate of 400 films is split up among them. So rough math, suppose you were the chairman of Fox, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm one of your SVPs, right? But from back in the day. We have 400 projects in development. And you're like, Puri, these 50, I need you to be responsible for. Like, you need to shepherd these like a father, mother, get them to their best state where I just can't say no. I'm like, yes, we absolutely have to make this, right? So that means as a studio executive, you are finding material. Hey, I just read this amazing script. We should buy this thing. It's on the market, right? Oh, I just played this video game. Oh, I just licensed the rights to Kleenex. We should make Tissue, the movie. Whatever it is. I'm only kind of laughing. You saw Viewmaster, the movie, just got set up. So I, as the senior executive of the studio, am trying to push these forward. So in the example of Die Hard, which is a franchise that predated me, part of how Fox recruited me from DreamWorks, because I was an executive vice president at DreamWorks for Kurtzman, Orci. Fox recruited me because, number one, they doubled my salary, which was generous. Number two, said, we'll let you run the Die Hard franchise. And the chairman of Fox was like, I bet you grew up watching Die Hard movies. I'm like, I did watch them on the record, So that was hard to say no to. Yeah. So what that meant is at the studio, we were working on Die Hard 5. This obviously when Bruce was in a better, state.
Yeah.
And The mission was we had a slot in Bruce's schedule for the next spring. He had 8 weeks when he could shoot, and we had to get together an idea, get it scripted, get it boarded, like scheduled, get it budgeted, and make the damn thing. And that's what a studio executive does: is they nurture projects from inception. They buy things. They have studio projects that exist before them, and they try and get them made. Hey, Ryan, CEO, chairman of the studio, this package is so good. This package is so good, you can't say no. And you're like, okay, Puri, here's $150 million. Go make Die Hard 5, right? Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I'm getting a lot of shades of Entourage. I'm a big Entourage fan, so I'm imagining Ari arguing with you to get Vince's movie made.
Oh my God. Can I tell you, it was funny because I was in film when Entourage came out. And my friends and I, were all executives. You watched that and it wasn't like drama. It was like a reality show. You're like, oh yeah, I was in that meeting yesterday. Oh yeah. Oh, the Pepsi thing. Yeah. That was actually the meeting with Coke at CAA last week. It's really, really. And then I went, back into tech.
Okay.
And then Silicon Valley came out. And again, it's like a reality show. It's like so spot on. You're like, it's funny, but it's not funny, but it's funny.
It's probably why both of those shows were so successful. I mean, they're the authenticity and yeah. So settle a debate for us real quick, and then we'll get to the serious stuff. Die Hard
Christmas movie.
Yes, you've been asked this before.
He throws a soft one right down the middle. Okay, this is some of your audience is gonna be like, this is the craziest, most fun episode, and others gonna be like, what the hell are they doing? But I'm gonna answer your question. The way I would answer it to another film executive, not to a civilian. Okay. Which is the best movies when you strip out the genre element. By genre element, I mean the photon torpedoes and the aliens and the ghosts and the thing. You take out all that kind of stuff. You peel it away. The beating heart of the movie is usually about a family. Like when we did Star Trek 11, which was the first one with Chris and Zach playing, Kirk and Spock.
Sure.
If you think about that movie, if you take out the USS Enterprise and the aliens and the photon torpedoes, it's Cain and Abel. It is simply the story of two brothers who are going to kill each other. And they lose the movie until they have it out with each other and they get over their shit, and then they can win the movie, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean is, if you really take out all the things and say, oh, we have a $2 million movie, not a $200 million movie, usually the best ones boil down to, it's a story. It's really relatable. It's about me and my brother. It's about me and my dad. It's about husband and wife, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. So this is why I tell you that. Fundamentally, Die Hard is so well structured. To this day, 30, 40 years later, writers still come into your office when you're, vice president of the studio, and they explain their movie going, okay, Ryan, so it's basically Die Hard with a female lead, and it's on a space station. It's basically Die Hard, but in a submarine, because it's just so well done. And when it's so well done, the writers can be almost obvious because you're just so into the movie, you'll let them get away with it. So if you remember in the movie, he gets in the limo with Argyle, right? The limo driver.
Yeah.
And the limo driver's like, hey man, it's my first day as a limo driver. I just, trying to do this thing. And Bruce Willis wants nothing to do with it. And Argyle's trying to make small talk with him. Yeah. And it's so funny because they really want to set Bruce up as this fish out of water, right? Mm-hmm. He is a beat cop. He's a poor guy. He runs around the streets, kicking, jumping, and shooting bad guys, right? And he lost his wife to these rich Japanese guys, right? Big company in Los Angeles. So Argyle's bugging him, being like, come on, why are you here, man? And he's like, leave me alone, leave me alone. And finally he gets to Bruce, and Bruce goes, okay, so this is what happened. My wife left me to go this rich Japanese company. I came out here. And Argyle says back to him the entire movie. If you ever watch this scene again, you're like, how obvious is this? Argyle goes, okay, let me get this straight. So your wife left you. You came out here like a caveman to throw her over your shoulder and drag her back to New York. And Bruce looks at his child and goes, yeah, okay, kind of like that. Yeah, right? What is the end of the movie? He is carrying his wife out of a burning building over his shoulder after he has saved her ass, right? And she's going to come back with him. It is spot on the movie. It is a movie about a family going through a divorce that gets saved. And when do families come back together? at the holidays, it's the perfect time to set it.
I mean, I love that answer. And I feel like, so my next question is going to be, talking about how being in the film industry taught you about whether it's distributed or hybrid or even creative collaboration. And then some of the breakthroughs that you learned there that you're applying now. And I think you just hinted at some of it, whether this is something that you've learned or something that has always been a skill of yours. But you just distilled these things down into their essence. And so I'm just curious, is that something that has always been a strength of yours, or is that something that you learned through film? Okay.
Absolutely learned. It was not a strength of mine. It was one of those things where it's like, you play tennis with someone who's better than you are, you get better. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I happen to be very fortunate that I worked with some of the top screenwriters in the action genre in Hollywood. Period. There are about 12 guys, mainly guys, one girl, but there are about 12 guys whose fingerprints are on almost every big studio action movie. Mm-hmm. They would rewrite it, they do the dialogue polish, whatever, because they were just that good. So when I was at DreamWorks, I was an EVP with Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orci, who had we did Transformers 1 and 2, Eagle Eye. They had done, before I met them, they'd done Zorro, they'd done Mission Impossible 3, they did The Island, like a ton of stuff, right? When you play at that level, you pick stuff up. Mm-hmm. You learn how to hit the ball back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time in between games hitting balls against a wall so you're not embarrassed in the next game. So
yes,
the kind of things, that I learned about this, absolutely, from being in those rooms. And that's something, like I told you, I just had a son last week. Mm-hmm. Like, I will hopefully pass along to him this idea, which is, if there is somewhere you want to go in life, and I don't know whether it's NBA finals or it's running a hedge fund or it's being an amazing artist, whatever it is, right? It is better, if you want to be in the NBA finals, to be mopping the floors around Michael Jordan than being like the top player on some high school team in some small nowhere. You know what I mean? It's like, be around greatness and learn.
That is so true. That is so true. And I mean, even something you said a minute ago jumps out at me, where you said, you're kind of joking, but there's a lot of truth and some great advice in there. Is you spend a lot of time in an empty room throwing a ball against the wall, so you get good at playing catch or hitting it back. And the preparation, and like you just said, putting yourself in the arena, being around greatness, just even if it's at the lowest level. Yeah. No, that's.
And I'll tell you actually a funny story related to that.
Yep.
So, not everyone is born a Spielberg or a Picasso or Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
We're not all Tiger Woods out of the womb.
Right.
And something I noticed, because there's an intimidation factor of like, oh my God, how can I be around Jordan and mop the floors, whatever, and, pick up a basketball right now and try and shoot it, is something I noticed was interesting in film. And I saw this with some designers in this tech thing that I'm doing now, is the absolute best designers become very generous. If they know that you are passionate and you are learning, they're very generous and forgiving. It is the mid-level ones that actually are very precious with their ideas. They don't want to hear anyone else's idea. It has to be my way to the highway. And the best ones are like, no, man, for the sake of this art, and it can be commercial art, it could be an app, it could be a hardware device, but for the sake of this art, I want the best idea to win, not my idea. Yep. And when I was at DreamWorks, I'll tell you, and I'm going to, out of respect to Steven, I'm going to change some of the details here, okay? Because it was amazing. I remember the first time I was in Steven Spielberg's private conference room, like off his office in the Amblin compound, right? I'd done well at DreamWorks and I'd risen up, and I had a project now that Steven was personally interested in and might direct. He was that involved, right? So the first time he called a meeting where it was me, Stacy, who was the chairman of the studio, himself, Holly, the president, the writers, the whole thing. So there are like 8 or 9 of us sitting at his Adobe Southwestern cool, conference room. And no matter how long I'd been in film and done stuff and people thought I was cool, there was a certain amount of like, OMFG. I'm like sitting 3 feet from Steven Spielberg and he's talking intelligently about a product that I'm trying to make. What? Right? This is an awesome moment, right?
Yeah.
So, but of course you're trying to play it cool. You're trying to play it cool. Like, this is totally normal. Just Tuesday. This is just every Tuesday we hang out. Steven and I talking about movies, right? So I remember he said something, and I'm going to change the details a little bit. It was like, okay, so in the next scene, you know what we need? It's like the alien comes through the wall. And he bursts through the wall, and we're going to discover that he is allergic, or it is allergic to water, right? Mm-hmm. Something happened. There was someone in the room, I'm going to call the coffee boy, who's sort of passing through. And he said, actually, if you don't mind, I feel like we saw that last year in this other movie. And what if it were this other, what if it was not water, it was this other thing, and he came in this different way? And I thought to myself, oh my God, that's the last time we see the coffee boy alive. That's so cute. Like, he'll be in small pieces in the dumpster out back. The coffee boy contradicted Steven Spielberg on this. And Steven, without missing a beat, goes, yeah, that's better. Let's do that. And the meeting moved forward like nothing had happened. And I was like, wow. Yep. That's what, when you are so confident and confident in like who you are and you're trying to make something great, it's not about it was his idea. It was about, that's a better idea. Let's just do that. And no one blinked. We just moved on. And I was like, that is how I want to be. And I want my kids around someone like that to show them this is what it's like when you're actually designing the first iPhone, right?
Yeah.
You are like aiming for greatness, not aiming for mine.
So, I mean, that's such a beautiful story. And I've got a follow-up question for you on that, but you're talking about how, like, I have seen the exact same thing that you just described.
There you go.
In a sense of, I think the people who are, I don't even want to say the best, but what you just said about being true in the tech industry, I think is true in every industry. If you're around golfers, if you're around strength athletes, if you're around I don't care what the pursuit.
As you are, you have more experience in that world than I do.
Sure. But I don't think I don't think you were saying it's domain specific, but I'm going to just assert that it is absolutely not. I think, to your point, the people who have had success, some level of success, are very generous, very much want to share because they didn't get there on their own. They know they want to perpetuate that give back cycle. They want to share. They want to bring people along. It's the people in the middle or even at the bottom who are insecure, have not yet had the success, who are in that scarcity mindset, are protective of things.
You nailed it.
It's living in the
That's
ego.
What it is.
And it's ego too,
it is that
right?
feeling of scarcity.
There's no ego in Spielberg saying, oh, the coffee guy had a better idea on this than me.
Yeah. Right. He's still Steven Spielberg at the end of it. Right. He's not like, oh God, what do people think of me? They're like, okay, cool. Steven liked that idea. Great.
Yeah. So how would you, I know one of the things we talked about before hitting record is it's really important for you to leave things better than you found it, so to speak. And so if you were to try to teach your son how to be that open-minded or have that beginner mindset, no matter how advanced he gets, like, how do you think you would teach that? Or in a group setting, and if you're talking about culture in an organization, how do you facilitate that openness and lack of ego and best idea wins?
You hit upon one of the two words on that spectrum when you said scarcity. Like, you hit the nail on the head. The other end is abundance, right? And abundance comes with feeling confident. Like, there are enough good ideas. All of us can have good ideas that go into this app, this website, this movie, this TV series, this book, right? Whatever it is, right? So it is interesting to me because, as you know, I'm thinking a lot about, I have a son now. And like, what are the things that we're doing, my wife and I, that will allow him to feel this kind of confidence? And I think there is a certain amount of confidence that comes from, you have to actually strive to be good at something. Yeah. Like, if you're phoning it in, you're never going to feel abundance because you're always going to have that imposter syndrome of like, I really don't belong in this room. I'm really not good. Like, the coffee boy had seen enough movies to understand this was exactly the right thing to say. Yeah. It wasn't like some off, topic kind of random thing like, oh, sure hope there's popcorn. He said something that was like spot on. You're like, actually, that's a good idea. So the answer, I think, my answer, because there are many smart answers to this, but my answer to your question is that you develop a sphere around you, an energetic sphere of knowledge and confidence because you actually put in the work. And you can do it in healthy ways. I know we're going to talk about this. There are ways that are sometimes like when I was in Silicon Valley, now I'm in Texas, but I was in Silicon Valley, like there are some, cultures that are like, if you're not sleeping under your desk at 3 a.m., you're not in it for real and your company's like, you know what I mean? There is that thing. And there's also a culture of, hey man, if you like a laser focus on exactly what is going to be effective, you can do it in a much healthier way, sustainably healthier way.
So I think that's a great segue into the next portion of the conversation. I love that laser focus on being effective. I'm seeing a shift, and maybe you're seeing it as well, where this hybrid work is going back towards even more in office. Some companies are going from 3-2 now to 4-1. Some are even requiring all 5 days a week. So something that I've really that stood out to me with your work is this concept that great teamwork is not necessarily dependent upon proximity. It's about synchronizing that focus and flow, as you just said. So can you talk a little bit about why proximity isn't in and of itself the answer?
Yes. Okay. So there are, I think, 3 parts I can think of to your answer. The first part is something that a lot of people don't think about is film for 100 years has been doing remote, hybrid, in person, right? Okay. For many industries, the pandemic was like a shock to the system. Oh my God, we can't be under the same fluorescent lights 10 hours a day. We'd kill each other, Zoom became a verb. Every film starts out remote. It's writers writing in their home, writing in coffee shops, writing in their writing partner's living room, right? At a certain point, one of those ideas gets some traction. Oh, Ryan and Steven, writing team have a script that got optioned, and someone opens up a small production office, right? 2 days a week, you and I are in the production office getting notes from Brad Pitt's agent on how to do the rewrite, meeting with the location scout, where should we shoot this, meeting with the costumer, what do you think they wear? And the other 3 days, we're off writing, right? So we're in hybrid. And then you're on set day and night for months at a time. It is, it is RTO film style, right? Okay. And then it goes back to hybrid with picture editors and sound editors working. And then you're eventually remote, just working on the release of the film. So it's interesting that in film for 100 years, leaders have known how to lead through each stage of the film, and individual contributors have known how to contribute. But in film, you'd never call it like, oh, Ryan, I see you're in the remote stage of your film. You'd be like, what? But if I said, hey, you're in pre-production. Oh, you're in prep. Oh, you're in development. Oh, you're in photography. Like you'd be like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Exact same thing. Yep. It's remote, hybrid, RTO, right? Yeah. So that was something I just want to point out, which is it's interesting in film that this is not like as much of a shock to the system. You couldn't shoot in the same place during the pandemic, but we'll get past that. Okay, so now let's go on to the next part of what you're saying, which is I, by virtue of running, Suka, a focused community people, talk to a lot of leaders, usually leaders who have had people that are working for them, with them, say, oh, we're all using this tool. And they call me to go, hey man, can I get a site license? Can I get 15 seats or whatever it is, right? Engineering managers will call. So you talk to some of them, and I do talk to people who are in the RTO mindset. And I'll tell you this, most of what, when you dig down, you find is fear. And it's this fear of like, you know what? At 3:00 on Tuesday afternoon, if I can't see Ryan, I'm not really sure what he's doing. And that is actually a hiring problem. That's not an RTO remote problem. Because I'm going to tell you this, if you as a leader understand you have 2 big jobs, you have small jobs managing the TPS reports and stuff like that, right? But you have 2 big jobs. Declare your mission. We're here to cure cancer, man. Like, we're here to go to the moon. We're here to invent, like renewable energy, whatever it is, right? And the second thing is you declare a culture, which is a set of values. This is how we're going to treat each other. This is how we're going to treat our customers, this is how we're going to treat our competitors. If you do those two things well, you will attract people into your team that belong there. Because let me tell you this, if I'm trying to cure cancer and I hire you, Ryan, and I know your grandmother died of breast cancer, let me tell you, Tuesday afternoon, 3 p.m., I do not need to see you to know that you are moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
But if I hire you and you are, 5 jobs in 6 years, you're surfing Indeed, I'd be an idiot to hire you. You're not engaged in why we're here. You're just looking for a job, right? So that's something that I've found is there is that hiring and poor leadership that sometimes makes remote harder. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll tell you this. There's some things I absolutely believe are best in person, period. I'm not like a full remote, junkie. Mm-hmm. I've never had a creative collaboration over Zoom or, Teams or something or Google Meet that has ever had the same weird energy of being in the room. And like, whether you're breaking story, hey, what happens at the end of the third act? What happens at the end of the second act? Oh, what should this button do? What should we call it? I've never had that over a Zoom that's felt as cool as being in the room or being on a walk with someone, or being on a retreat. So I think there's a place depending on what you need to do, because knowledge work is often sometimes like really great to do alone. If you want to get into a flow state, it's not chatting with 10 people in a conference room. No. It is, I need to go write this new feature. Give me 2 days. I want to go home and like go deep, and I'll come back with something that's going to wow you, Yeah. So
it's a great answer. I love that. So you mentioned flow states there. I'd love to hear your perspective on, how we engineer flow states, because I think we both know it's not something that you can force. And if you're actively focused on, am I in flow or not, then you're not focusing on the things that you have to focus on in order to get the
right.
It's like looking for the floaty thing in your eye. You can't stare directly at it.
Yeah, exactly right. Every time you move, your eyes. Yeah.
And by the way, you mentioned TPS reports as a joke. I just have to tell you, I do work with a lot of firefighters. And the first time I made that joke with one of my clients, he's a battalion chief, firefighters actually have a real report called a TPS report.
Oh my God. Wow.
So, yeah. And earlier this year, I spoke at a mental health symposium for first responders, and I got to tell that on stage, and they all just cracked up. There's a room full of people that have actual TPS reports. So it's great.
But let me ask you this. Do they have to wear 37 pieces of flair like the pretty boy Bobby over there?
No.
Because if so, make the minimum 37 pieces of flair.
I mean, but why do just the minimum, right? Because then you got to worry about where I am on a Wednesday afternoon.
Ryan, you get it. You've seen inside my soul. You get it. Hold on. What was the question? Your TPS report. You got me. You just got me. My brain's gone. What is it?
It's all right. Engineering
flow states.
How do we engineer
flow states? Okay. So if it's fair to you, I would bet that a cohort of your listeners right now are like flow masters. They know all about it. They got it. Yep. And there's another cohort that's like, hey man, I have a passing understanding of it. I'd like to understand it better.
Sure.
So that everyone's on an equal playing field. Can I take 30 seconds and just define?
Please do. I love that approach.
Okay. So let's set the table. Really smart Hungarian American psychologist. This guy, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He had a thesis. He said, it is interesting how high performers in very different disciplines, athletes and artists and scientists and inventors, they go into these highly concentrated states where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing that changes the world. Mm-hmm. And they talk about these states in very similar ways. So he was like, what's up with that? How can I find out more about that, right? Yeah. And like Prometheus, he wanted to go up to Mount Olympus and steal fire from Hephaestus and bring it down to the rest of us, right? So he did all this research. At the end of it, he wrote the book, Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It is from whence we get the term flow state. And he said, I think the greatest thing, he said, I chose this word flow because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found. We are all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. It magnifies your efforts. You go further and faster. And that is what these people have figured out how to do and to do it repeatably. That is where we get a flow state. And it's called many things. He acknowledged, I think Michael Jordan had a great quote about when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball, you know? And it's like people have different words when you go into this highly concentrated state. And he described it. He said, here's some characteristics. Distractions fall away. You lose track of time. You're not staring at the clock. You don't know if 15 minutes gone by or half an hour, an hour, or 2 hours. You just don't know. You do your best work. At the end of it, you feel an uplifting sense of joy rather than a depletion of like, oh God, I'm working so hard. It's like this thing. And he said, as this touches upon what you said, Ryan, he said, it is not like a button that you press where you're like, I am in flow now, right?
Yeah.
He said, rather, there are some conditions precedent you can set that make it more probable your brain will drop into this state. And like any muscle, the more you do it, the more you sort of get there. So now Mihai wrote the book and did a lot of the seminal research. He died, actually, I think 3 years ago, last month. There have been some really smart people who've extended his research, that whole standing on the shoulders of giants thing, right? So people from, Cal Newport to Stephen Kotler, you can go down the list. They've done research into these different conditions precedent. So now to become very actionable, that was all the theory and the fluff kind of, right? Let's start with those actionable things. One thing a lot of research shows is there is a certain kind of music that helps lull your brain into this concentrated state. And for most people, the sweet spot is music that's 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, ambient, non-vocals. You're not singing along with Britney Spears or Blackpink or whatever, right? I know that's your thing, and I'm cool with that, Ryan. Yeah, I know. Just our secret.
I thought I told you that in college.
You, me, and no one listening. So there's this essence of music. I'm going to tell you a funny story about music, though.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, the thing I've been working on the past few years is a website that helps you get into flow, right? So we knew music. The research shows there is an absolute description of the kind of music that works for most people. I happen to have a bunch of friends who are film composers from my previous career, right? Who have time on their hands. So I was like, hey, here are kind of the specs. Could you write me like 1,000 hours of original music that's all like this, like long repeating passages, right? So we did this. And I'll tell you what's funny. So a buddy of mine, he does sound mixing for LucasArts for the Star Wars games, right? Called me up. He's like, hey man, I just got back from Nepal. It was my kid's high school graduation present. He wanted to go to Nepal, so we just got back. One of the days we were there, it poured rain, like that lush, thick, amazing rain. You're up in the Himalayas. And I had my sound recording equipment, so I recorded like 2 hours of it. God, that's what I do, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know what to do with it, but do you want it for your Suka app? And I was like, sure, okay. Try it. So quietly, in between all the playlists, right? Because there are playlists that are like upbeat and down tempo and, lo-fi beats and binaural, right? I just put in there a playlist called Himalayan Dream Rain.
Okay.
Didn't really announce it. Just said like, hey man, here's this thing. Can I tell you, it's become the third most popular playlist in our platform.
Wow.
And it's just the sound of rain in Nepal. So when I saw this, because I run the community, I can see who's listening to it. I emailed a bunch of people. I was like, can you help me understand this? Because we spend a lot of time doing all this scientifically researched music, helping it to flow. And yet I noticed you're listening to rain like every morning for 2 or 3 hours in New York, right? Help me, right? And I'm telling you, Ryan, it was super interesting the way, it reminds me when I was young, my grandmother raised me in Georgia. And that sound of the rain reminds me when I'd be doing my schoolwork. Oh, it reminds me of our summer cabin. Oh, it reminds, and it was so much. It brings my brain right back to this place where I was doing my work, my schoolwork.
Yeah.
You have something to say. I'm going to pause for a moment before I go on because it looked like you were about to say something.
So, no, there's just so many things in there that trigger thoughts for me. One, I'm laughing about your friend who recorded the rain because this podcast used to be called The Better Human Project. And when we first started that, we had this phenomenal friend, Josh Crowther, who was our audio guy. And he used to run the sound at music venues. He ended up going on stage with oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. He actually opened for Chris Stapleton for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But so Josh was like a legit audio guy, but he would do stuff like that. He would take our Zoom recorder and he would get, ambient sound of like the fire in a fire pit and do all this. And so I just, when you were talking, when you were talking about your friend and you said it was raining and it was that thick rain, I knew where you were going because I've seen Josh do it. Like an audio guy would do exactly that. Like,
exactly that. So you know what we did? We did exactly what your friend and Julian would want to do. Is after I spoke to people, I was like, oh, so this is a mental trigger of a time when you were focused and it works for you.
Yes. And I would say, and that's the other thing I was going to add is not just focused, but safe. You notice that in all of those memories, there's psychological safety. There's no stress. There's no anxiety or anything like that. You're in a place from which you can create, which kind of goes back to that scarcity and abundance thing. But there's just so much to where you're resonating and kind of what your internal energy is and how that impacts your ability to perform.
That is so true. I had never thought of safety being a part of that, but I think you're exactly right.
I think it's true for knowledge workers and, like you look at tier one operators, there's safety because you're with your teammates. If you're in a small group that, if there's 6 operators, 5 guys are watching your back and you're going to perform better with those 5 guys that and that you've done millions of reps with, as opposed to, having 100 guys that you've never been out with. Or it's the home versus away game in sports, right? There's just so much that goes into that. But
that is so true. So here's what we did is we started expanding on that discovery. We put up playlists that were streams in Japan, surf in Cyprus.
Okay.
There's a lake in Canada, I guess near Vancouver, called Emerald Lake that has these particular indigenous birds and it's so interesting the way some people are so loyal to this particular sort of, we call it a soundscape or a naturescape now because we don't really call it a playlist. And one woman reached out to me and she said, hey, listen, I noticed you're doing this new thing. It's not just music in your app. I had a kid during the pandemic. I'm a writer. She's a blogger. Mm-hmm. I used to go to coffee shops. It was inspiring for me to be around other people, right? Mm-hmm. She said, during the pandemic, I had a kid. I can't go to coffee shops anymore. Any chance you could put up the sound of a coffee shop? And we didn't record it, but we found someone had recorded a couple hours in a coffee shop in Vienna, Austria, and made the MP3 available. Right. So we threw it up there and it became, again, curiously popular. So I guess the reason I bring this up is what you said about if you're looking for the conditions that help you drop into flow, generally the research shows it takes 15 to 23 minutes to get into flow. Again, it's not, as Mihai said, it's not a button you press. It's sort of conditions you set, and as you go deep, you get in there. So music really helps you get there and helps you get there repeatedly, especially if every morning you go, you know what? I'm blocking 9 to 11 to do the deep work, the work that moves my life forward, not paying the bills and doing the stupid Zooms and returning Slack messages, but the work that puts my energy out into the world, right? Yep. If you do that, you come up with those repeatable things. Related to that is this concept of, as Mihai put it, how do you find that space where distractions fall away, especially in a world where, hey man, some of the smartest people right now, their entire job is to distract you. Yeah. Yeah. The biggest companies on the stock market, their business model is kind of steal your life, period, full stop. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, maybe 10 years ago when Zuckerberg would be called to testify in DC, he would be all shucks. And he's like, oh, Facebook's just about, grandmothers seeing videos of their grandkids. And now they're not embarrassed at all. They're like, hey, listen, to maximize shareholder value, we deploy these techniques to make sure we keep you distracted. And we're going to deploy new ones next quarter to get more of your life. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, it's kind of criminal. It's if Mark were to call you up and say, hey, Ryan, I'd like to have your life and I'm going to sell it to these advertisers over here and I'll keep the money. But I'm going to give you some dancing cat videos, buddy. How's that? Is that good? Is that a good deal? It sounds ridiculous.
No.
But it is what it is. And you teach people, I mean, I've heard you talk about, you teach people about having the discipline of creating these good, repeatable habits that actually are the only barrier to waking up 80 years old and being the guy who's like, oh yeah, I could have, I should have. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had that idea. I could have started that company. I could have been an athlete. And you're miserable and no one wants to be around you.
No, it's so true. And I love the bluntness with which you put it, because I think it makes it, impossible to, deny. You can't sweep that under the rug. So you mentioned this website that you've built. I'd love if it's something that our listeners could access, or if it's like a membership thing. Like, what is this website where all these resources are for accessing and triggering flow?
That is very gracious of you to ask, because it's something I'm very passionate about. And I'll tell you, Mihai had a thesis. He's like, there are these weird states that high performers get into, and I want to discover what it is and bring it to everyone, right?
Yeah.
I have a thesis. And my thesis is, we all have something great inside us. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of forces in the world that are pulling on the tug of war rope toward you not doing it. So I believe really strongly that when you are on your side of the tug of war rope going, no, I refuse to die with this book inside me, with this NBA championship inside me, with this app inside me, with this movie inside me, whatever it is that is your greatness. If you are not going to go to your grave with it still inside you, then you need to find the allies that help you do that. And that's what we created. We created a simple website. It's stupid simple. We took the research on how do you get into a flow state? And we said, okay, how can we provide these things? How can we help you block your distractions, time box, have great music, scientifically, to the best scientific specs, as well as these offbeat things like naturescapes, sounds of rain, sounds of coffee shops, and let you track what you're doing. And there's a community of people in there now who are all like-minded. And I think that African proverb is very true about, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it's one of the things you understand. This is actually a sports metaphor that you probably will appreciate. When we launched the early version of this website, it was like a single player game. It was like, hey man, come here. There's a big play button. Hit play when you start work. It'll play music. It'll block your stuff. It'll give you feedback on how you're doing. There's a little smart assistant. It'll slap your wrist if you open Facebook, stuff like that, right? And I had this idea because over the time building this, we had a ton of members who all knew me because they'd asked me support questions and things, but none of them could see each other. For all of them, it was a single player game, right? And I was like, what if they knew each other? Would that be a good idea or bad idea? So I sort of put this out to the community, as I love to do. We build this together. And I'm going to tell you, my mind was made up by one woman. I pitched this to her. I said, what do you think if we had the ability for you to see other people in this world? People are trying to do something, be able to chat, be able to have some sense of like, you're not alone. And she said, listen, Stephen, I know you're worried that this might be a distraction. Oh, if it's a flow state app, you can't be in a flow state with other people. She's like, here's the deal. I can go to the Nike store. I can buy a pair of shoes. They will sell me a left shoe and a right shoe. I can put them on my feet and go running. They work great. There's a reason why there are 100 million people in the Nike Run Club, because together you run further and you run faster. In the days that you suck and you don't have the motivation, and your friends come by like, come on, Ryan, let's do this. It feels great to go for that run. And it feels even better the day that you're the one who goes by and picks your friend up. Come on, Steven, let's do this. She's like, you should absolutely do it. And I'll tell you this, it is my favorite thing in the app now. I look for it every morning to open it up and seeing who's talking about what. You can post what you're working on. If you're passionate about something, hey man, I just launched my website. Boom, post in group chat. People look at it. They interact because it's not like Twitter where people hate on each other.
Yeah.
It's the ethos is kind of like, hey man, we're all in the Nike Run Club. Let's support each other running and being our best. So that's what we created. And it's called the Suka. Suka means happiness.
All right. So I'll make sure I have that link, and we'll put the link in the show notes. So if people are listening, just go down to the description and you'll be able to, one click and go check out the Suka website and see if that can be a place you want to go. Quick question before we move on. I do want to talk about dopamine, but since we're talking about flow and distractions, I'm curious if you have maybe 2 or 3 tactical actions to regain focus after distraction.
Oh, okay. So interestingly, the research shows to get into a flow state takes like 15 to 23 minutes, right?
Yep.
If you're in a flow state and you get interrupted, it takes another 15 or 23 to get back in, right? So it is not inconsequential to be like working and have someone slack you and you're like, oh, here, let me go get that thing for you and try and get back into what you're doing, Right. Or you can extend that metaphor, obviously, or example, to sports or whatever, right? But that sense of staying in it is really important. So tactically, yes. I'll tell you, you're going to laugh. For those who are watching the YouTube video, we experimented with making little phone coffins. You see this?
I love it.
You could stick your phone in there. There's like, where is it? Here, right here.
Yeah.
There's a little hole for the charging cable. And you know what it was? This was the idea of just, hey, what if I made it just kind of harder, a little bit of friction before I picked up that phone?
Beautiful.
And I'll tell you why. And this is me being vulnerable and like, I'm an idiot, but I'm going to tell you. Mm-hmm. I noticed that if I was coding and something wasn't working, the build kept failing and it's frustrating, my hand is so dopamine craving. Without my thinking about it, I would get my phone to open WhatsApp. Oh, I wonder who messaged.
Yep.
Check my email. Sometimes open TikTok, and it's never a minute. I'll just do this for a minute. It's never a minute.
Never.
Right?
No.
And I wouldn't think about it if I was writing a blog post like for a blog, and I'm reading it. I'm like, this is shit. I'm going to have to rewrite this. I was frustrated. I would reach for my phone. So attempt 1 was, hey, what if we made a box? And by the way, if you want one of these, I got a bunch of them. Right? Here's the easier thing that I just couldn't believe we didn't think of first, which is, remember I said when you open the Suka website to start work, right? You hit play and it plays music and blocks distractions like that. We came up with a QR code. So when you click play, a QR code pops up in the center of the screen and you tap it with your phone. I can put my phone down, start work. Mm-hmm. When I have that little zero effort dopamine craving, like, I need to pick up my phone, my smart assistant in Suka knows when I pick up my phone and it talks to me. It goes, Steven, do you really need to be on your phone right now? Like, is this helping you? And it's just like having a friend sitting there being like, really, dude? I thought we're studying. Are you studying? Finals are coming up, buddy. And it's enough to go, okay, I get to choose. Do I want to be the guy who finishes work like at 3? Or do I want to be grumpy guy who's telling Laura, oh yeah, after dinner, I've got to come home and finish whatever I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, yep. I hate being that guy who's like, dinner can't go too late because I have to finish work I didn't do during the day, Like, that's
No, that's awesome. And I love the idea of putting the phone in a box. I mean, it's my favorite word there is friction. Like if you can add a little bit of friction to it. And I love that because when we talk about how do you make desirable habits more, like stick more, right? It's you want to make them as friction free as possible. So if you're trying to stop a habit, it only makes sense to add friction.
What distracts you when you're working? What are the distractions that get you?
I appreciate that you shared that. Like we condition our brains, right? And so the more you pick up your phone, the more you look for that dopamine hit, the more you teach your brain to do that. And so, I think it's a great share. I don't think that one necessarily is it's not one that trips me up as much, but it's more. My deep work is writing, and I'm actually behind the scenes here. We'll let people in. I'm
working on another book.
Working on another book. So I've signed the deal. Actually announced that today on Instagram. And
oh, congratulations! This is a sequel to "Fuck Your Feelings," or whatever. Screw your sentiments.
it will be the follow up, but we're going to go with a non-vulgar title so that we have
easier to market.
Yeah. So
yeah,
but there's a great quote from Hemingway on writing, and maybe some of your knowledge workers can relate to this, but he says, there's nothing to writing. You have to sit at the typewriter and bleed. And that is my biggest struggle is staying in the chair. And I know that's advice, like literally, but also figuratively, right? Like figuratively, the advice is stay in the saddle, stay in the chair, be in front of the easel if you want to paint. But the physical act of staying there physically and mentally, that's my challenge. And so if I'm at home during the day by myself, I can get up, I can walk around, I can kind of shake that out and then come back. But if there's somebody at home and I talk to them when I get up, or it looks like, hey, Ryan's taking a break, or if I go to a coffee shop, I can't physically get up and take that lap because to other people, that's a signal that I'm disengaging.
Right. It's so true. Okay. So I have a question for you around that. When you've experienced a flow state before, and writing is a fantastic activity to just go in a flow where you look up, you're like, what? I'll tell you, for me, I experienced a flow state before I knew the term flow state. Mm-hmm. And it was this weird thing. I was on a flight. I was going from Austin to San Francisco. Okay. And the next day I was going to meet with my team. And I had an idea that I wanted to kind of mock up in Figma of like a feature we could build. And if everyone liked it, they could kind of like take the Figma designs and make them better, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So got on the flight. Alaska runs that nonstop route. The captain's like, hey, sorry, kids, Wi-Fi's out. We'll get there soon. We take off. And like 15 minutes later, we're landing. And I was like, oh my God, like the engine fell off. Like we're at DFW. Like something bad happened. They don't want to tell us until we're safe on the ground.
Yeah.
And I looked down and 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no concept of it.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And my designs were done. And I was like, so we're landing at SFO. Yeah. And I had planned to do, my usual stupid thing. Run through the hotel lobby, grab a sandwich, go to the hotel room, try and finish the design for the morning. In reality, I had a free night. I called a buddy of mine. I was like, hey man, I'm in SF. I want to have dinner. And it was really like I got to tell you, I had this flight where like, I feel great about it. I did good work. I got it done in 2 hours, like this whole thing. And then later realized that's a thing a lot of people do. I just wasn't in the club at the time. Right.
So
I'm curious for you, like, what is your experience of a flow state like? Like, is it writing or is it doing other stuff?
I've been there writing. I've been there speaking. There have been times where, I'm on stage and somebody's calling out like, hey, I get that 5 minutes left warning and it was a 60-minute talk. And I'm like, holy smokes. And everything went well, right? It's just
but you were like in the zone.
And I think, I've studied flow as well. I love Kotler and Wheel's work. Rise of Superman is one of my favorite books. And, because I've studied it, I'm aware that sort of loss of time is a big component of it. This morning, for example, like I'm a physical person. And so a lot of times I can get there.
Oh, we know. We know.
Like running or mid workout. And so, actually this morning, so today was not scheduled to be a writing day just because of the way, and I use those. I love that you mentioned the time blocks. I call it, time blocking or time chunks.
Yes.
And when I write, I know if I don't have at least a 2 to 3 hour block, I'm not even going to try to start because I know it takes me a long time to get into that deep work.
Yep.
Or flow
totally with
it. So I didn't have that today. So I wasn't even going to try to write. I'm doing a workout this morning at the house in our home gym. And it was just a circuit for arms. And what's interesting is on the last round, so this kind of fits in with that like 15 to 20 something minute mark.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking through the whole workout, like some stuff for the book. And then all of a sudden, it just hits. And so I've been in the habit for years, I'm an Apple person. So I've got an Apple laptop. I've got an Apple phone. The notes sync. I have so many notes in my note app. No, actually it's a Garmin.
Okay. Garmin, of course.
Too much intrusion in my life if they have to watch. But so,
okay.
But I've always been in the habit of making voice notes when those little, and you probably know this from your creative stuff. But this morning that hit, and I would grab my phone, make a voice note, do the next set, make a voice note, do the next set, add something. And by the end of it, I was like, wow, I really got a lot done. And I copied it. I pasted it into Scrivener, which is the word processing, the platform that I use for writing the books. 1,000 words. It was like 980 something words.
Wow. Just for your voice notes.
Voice dictated in a matter of like 3 minutes in between sets. And normally it would take me an hour or so to write 1,000 words.
Yeah. That is amazing when it flows like that. And I also want to pick up on something you said about time blocking, right? Because there's time boxing, which is how long should this task take? Yep. And it's kind of magical when you say I have 45 minutes, you kind of get it done in 45 minutes. Right? So time boxing is...
that's called Parkinson's law.
Yes. Task span to fill the available time.
There you go.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Very familiar with it, right? Yep. So time boxing, totally with you. Time blocking, I think is very interesting. And you touched on something, and this is, again, a little lantern I'm going to hang on this. Actionable tip. Something I saw in my film career more than in tech right now was the awareness of high performers to their chronotype. And by chronotype, I mean the awareness that there are times of day you're more adept at certain kinds of things. And I'll tell you, fun anecdote, the first time I witnessed this is a while ago, is there is a writer, Ron Bass, who was infamous for not talking to his family in the morning. Like not a hello, not a good morning. And this is the guy who wrote Rain Man, My Best Friend's Wedding, like a bunch of big studio movies, right? Couldn't do it. He's like, I'm not the dad who's gonna be like, okay, who wants pancakes? Who needs a ride to school? Nothing. He said, when I start talking with you, I can no longer hear my voices of my characters in my head. And he's getting, $1-2 million a script to write these characters.
Right.
To get Julia Roberts and Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman and all these people to say yes to his words over all the other offers they have to be pretty good words, right? So his family, of course, is like, Dad, you go make $2 million. We can make pancakes, like we're good, right?
Right.
And that was his thing. He's like, afternoon, I'll do studio meetings, I'll do collaborative meetings with other writers, whatever. But he's like, that 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. sort of thing. He time blocked that. Was like, I can't talk to anyone because I have to use that time for this, which I'm very good at. And he would get into flow in that regard. And I remember, because he was very strict about this, thinking, wow, this dude is like at the top of his game. And it's like talking to a great athlete who's like, I can tell you every carb I ate in the last week. You're like, this is exactly what time of day I ate it, what form, complex, simple. Like that thing where you're like, dude, at that level of the game, that's how you play. Yeah. And I saw that again with a number of people. And you were about to say something. I have another story, but you were about to say something.
No. Go ahead with the story.
Okay. So related to that, and this is, again, a little lantern hanging, another little actionable hack for your brain, right? Which is the same way I saw some people who are very high performers in film use this time awareness, this chronotype. I know my chronotype, right? I also saw the relationship between physical place and mental place.
Yeah.
First time I saw this, way back when I was like basically just coming out of college, I produced the digital effects for Independence Day, which is awesome. Really loved Roland and Dean. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects. It was a great thing for all our careers, right? So I met them, and they had come off doing Stargate and a bunch of sci-fi movies, Universal Soldier and Moon 44 and stuff. And what's interesting is when they were going to write, Roland had his assistant call, because there was this villa. I have not been there. Apparently there's this white marble villa in the hills of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, which is where they would write. And Roland told his assistant, go rent the place for the next 2 months, whatever we need to go write. And Joey came back. She's like, it's rented. It was like an Airbnb before there was Airbnb. She's like, it's a vacation rental. Someone else rented it. It was so important to Roland and Dean. Roland called his entertainment attorney, John Deamer, awesome dude, That Friday, it's like, John, buy the house. By Monday, Roland owned a villa in Puerto Vallarta. Where the current renters went, unclear to me, but they were not there on Monday. And Roland D went down there and came back 6 weeks later with the script that became the third highest grossing movie in film history, right? And I asked Dean about this. It's like, dude, what? Because I was like 21 at the time. I was like, what is it with, I mean, there's so many beautiful homes where you can write anywhere you want. Right? And he's like, there's this room there where in the morning, the light comes in over the pool. And there's something about being there that we think not about, oh, what cast is available, what budget will work, what are studio notes going to be, when will we think about what's the movie we'd like to see.
Yeah.
And we just write that.
You think about the stand.
He's like, that's why it's so important to us. And it was interesting to see how that worked. And by the way, when they wrote Godzilla, they didn't go to that house. It was a different experience, and the movie did not turn out very well. So it is not to say that you have to have a $5 million villa in Puerto Vallarta to do anything, right? Because I'll tell you later, when we were at DreamWorks, which we talked about, Alex and Bob, writers of Transformers 1 and 2, Eagle Eye, tons of stuff, Star Trek, they had a different thing, which is across the street, well, Amblin, the DreamWorks Amblin compound, where we worked with Steven, is on the Universal Studios lot.
Okay.
Right across the street, across Lancashire, is the Universal Hilton, which I'm just going to say is not a glamorous luxury property. It is where you go with your kids the night before you go on the rides and you get out, right? Alex and Bob, when they were in crunch time, they would have their assistant rent them a room at the Universal Hilton. And I thought to myself, again, they're pulling down $2 million a script. They could go to Bali and write. They could go wherever they want. Right. They go to these, what? And what hit me was this. That experience of going over there and like Kurtzman sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop and Bob at the little desk on his laptop, they met back in college. Mm-hmm. This probably evokes dorm room for them. It probably brings them back to that feeling of, oh, we're these young, scrappy writers who have to prove that we're great. And if they needed to finish Transformers 2 in 2 weeks, they went over there and they did it.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting the way they used, the number of people I would notice use physical space to get their mind more quickly into that flow state of like, okay, I'm in it, I'm in flow, I'm doing the thing, I'm in the zone, right? Mm-hmm. So, and again, you don't need anybody's app, you don't need anybody's music player, you don't need anything. These are just free things you can do as you start to become self-aware, and then you can manage yourself better. That was the end of a long speech. Sorry.
No, it's great. I think that's a great tip. I do want to make sure that we cover dopamine management in full. I know
right.
we've hinted at it.
Thank you for keeping us on track.
Talked a little bit about it, but maybe take a step back and kind of like you did with flow, tell some listeners who may be unaware of this, why it's so important.
Adjacent to the knowledge. Let us okay. So what Ryan is alluding to, and I know not a lot of people at home or in their car are nodding along. They're like, yeah, we get it. Right. What Ryan's alluding to is there has become, probably in the past 15, 20 years, a much greater awareness of how dopamine, this happiness, sort of addictive, hormone that you have, affects behavior. And when you understand that the tech companies that you use a lot, the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they study gambling habits. Mm-hmm. Their user design, the experience they're trying to create is modeled on how well casinos have figured out how to elicit dopamine. Examples, variable rewards. When you go and you play a slot machine, you play whatever, and you just don't know, and you get some bad, some really good, bad. They discovered it is more addictive for you to get some bad mixed in with the good than if they simply gave you good all the time. That's not as addictive because the dopamine hit when you go from bad to, oh my God, it paid off, is so great. You crave that again. So it sounds counterintuitive, but it is why when you're looking at content in your For You page, in your feed in Instagram, yeah, Mark and Evan and, Elon, they know exactly what they could feed you. So it's good. It's everything you always wanted, but it's deliberately mixed to be good and bad because that is more addictive because it gets the dopamine rush greater when you see the thing that they know you want. Mm-hmm. So as you become more sensitive to why am I drawn? I think, Ryan, your talk about, friction and frictionless, and how do you increase the friction in front of you and the thing you shouldn't be doing with your life, and decrease the friction between the habit you want. You have on the other side of that equation, Mark and Evan and, then these guys creating the exact same thing, going, how do we create these dopamine addictions to the things we want you to be doing, which is basically giving your life over so they can show ads and collect money, right? So that is the core of what we're getting at. Once you become sensitive to this, you may notice things like what I said when I was being vulnerable about. I realized I would waste time because I would find something frustrating and my brain would crave zero effort dopamine. Matter of fact, there's a great Huberman podcast about zero effort dopamine, where he just goes, we've gone to a world where you don't have to win the game. You don't have to write the book. You don't have to do the amazing thing to get dopamine. You can sit on your sofa and just scroll dopamine with your thumb. What does that do to you as a culture? I think a lot about the next generation now. Like, I've got a kid whom I adore. I pray that his generation looks at us with social media the way I look at my dad's generation smoking.
That's a great hope.
We'll see.
Man, it'd be great if that actually plays out that way.
We'll see. And, I talked to my dad about it. It's like, he's seen 3 friends die of lung cancer.
Yeah.
And I can beat him up, be like, how could you, and you have emphysema. And he's like, you don't understand. When I was coming up, like, movie stars were doing it. The tobacco companies were releasing studies how healthy tobacco, does it sound familiar?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And now, we have like Kim Kardashian makes an ad for her underwear line and it gets 15 million likes and it's viewed as content.
Right. Right.
I sure hope my kids are like, Dad, for real. Like, really? Did you guys watch like ads for like underwear and thought, kid, it was a different world. The Kardashians were huge. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that gives some good insight into, how the world around us is impacting dopamine and how it's maybe influencing our behaviors. What are some actionable things that listeners can do to, we've talked about the phone coffin or the nap box for your phone, if you want to call it that.
The phone coffin, I call it. Yeah.
Are there other things? I mean, look, we're not saying go back to the Stone Ages. I think we're both advocating for intentional use of technology.
You're the guy wearing it. You're wearing a wearable. You're wearing fitness trackers, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to project onto you what I believe is happening, and you tell me if I'm right.
Okay.
Which is, now you have closed the loop of you can do something, whether it's cardio, strength training, right? You have a sense of, I am now getting feedback on what were the effects of the thing that I did. I exerted myself in some way, right?
Sure.
And when you review that feedback, you built a positive habit loop of like, oh, look, I did better today. Like my mother-in-law, who's, I don't know, 68 something, she wants to talk actively with us at dinner about her Apple rings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They've created for her a dopamine loop around, I got my 10,000, look, my rings, da, da, da. And it sounds silly, but what a great way to say, you know what? Yeah, you want to use dopamine to trap me into scrolling my life away? Mm-hmm. Guess what? What if I give you really fun biofeedback where you're going to get some dopamine looking back at how well you did? You held up your Garmin watch before. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong? Do you not look at your specs and go, oh, I'm learning. This feels good.
I do, but I have a very funny relationship with fitness trackers. I don't know if we have enough time to go all the way down this road, but
oh boy. So as a child,
I believe that they can be very useful for people. The way that I would advocate to use them is to learn how to match your objective data with your subjective feels, so that when you wake up in the morning, if you're wearing something to track your sleep, that you can learn to wake up in the morning and say, okay, well, let me check in with myself. How do I feel?
Yeah.
so that you can eventually get to a point where you don't have to look at whether it's an Oura ring or a Whoop or whatever, because I know almost everybody I know that utilizes those trackers, they're going to wake up in the morning. The first thing they're going to do is look at the data that it spits out. And if it says they slept poorly or their recovery is low, that is implanted in their mind that today is going to be a shitty day. They're going to have a bad day or whatever. Okay. And that placebo.
Fair.
Now, don't get me wrong. If we're in training camp and you're preparing for, some event and we need to auto regulate how much you exert yourself on that day, that can be useful information. But most people are not using it that way. Most people are getting that placebo effect. And it says, well, you didn't sleep well last night, even though you went to bed at the right time. You think you got the 8 hours, but maybe the thing had a tracking issue. Maybe there was a bug. Maybe you laid on it wrong. And, the way you slept on it, there was a gap between the sensor and your skin, whatever. So my point is, so many people look at that and then take it as gospel or well, I'm kind of rambling here, but I see where you're going with this. So to try to bring this back to dopamine, yeah, absolutely. I can see how, I look down and this says I'm at 5,000 steps today. So I'm going to walk down and get the mail, and I'm going to walk instead of, drive my vehicle so that I can get more steps and I can feel better about, my movement, whatever.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to that simple concept of, how do you create frictionless positive feedback loops around the habits you want to have?
Yes. Well said.
That's it.
Well said.
Yeah.
So I know I asked you if you had a hard stop. I have a hard stop in 5 minutes, Stephen. So
okay,
here's what I want to do. I'd love to give you a chance to tell our listeners where they can find more of you. I know we talked about the Suka website earlier. We'll put that link in the show notes, but is there anywhere else, social media, LinkedIn, website, anything that you would want to direct people to?
You know what? Let me tell you a short story about why I named the Suka.
Okay.
And then people can find it if they want, which is this. So we had an early version running, with beta users, and we're kind of hacking together. What do you guys think, right? And Laura and I got married. I met Laura in yoga. I literally married the girl on the mat to my left, right? Mm-hmm. So where do you go on your honeymoon when you're super into yoga? We have a daily yoga practice. We went to Bali. I'm very grateful that my life is a point where we're just hanging in Bali for a couple of weeks. So we're flying there. And I said to Laura, I've been struggling to find a good name for this thing we're building. And I keep coming up with awful descriptive names. Flow state app, like distraction blocker thing, music player, whatever. I was like, maybe being away, like, the universe will speak to me and give me like some cool, interesting name. I mean, like Nike is not called like shoe company, like Amazon's not like online bookstore place, some interesting name that has some meaning. So she's like, yeah, I wish that fits great. So we got there and I said, I think something would seed my imagination over the next 2 weeks is, do you mind today if I have a couple quick Zooms with current members and just say, what's your favorite thing? And let that just percolate for 2 weeks. She's like, I'm going to the pool. I will see you at dinner. Enjoy your Zooms, right? So I reached out to people in the group chat. I was like, who has 5 minutes to talk? 10 minutes tops, right? Yep. Spoke to 3 people, wrapping up the third one. And I asked, the usual questions. What's your favorite thing? Do you love the music? Do you love the smart assistant keeps you off your phone? Like, what do you love, right? And the guy who's still a member, and I did not know him well at the time, but now I do. The guy, when I was going to the wrap up for the third one, I was like, hey, listen, Ryan, I asked for 10 minutes. We're coming up on that. I want to let you go. Thanks a lot, man. He stopped me. He goes, Stephen, you asked the wrong questions. I'm like, okay, guy that I don't know that well. Like, what was the right question? And he goes, you should have asked me why I pay you. I was like, dude, we charge like $10 a month. Like, it's not a lot. I didn't think that's a big deal. But okay, I'll take the bait. Why do you pay me? He said, for the last year or so, I find I have 2 kinds of days. At 3:00, I'm playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4 right now. Or at 6:00, I'm down myself. Where did the day go? I was busy all day, but I didn't get the important stuff done. He said, I realized the difference is, did I hit play in your website in the morning? So the reason I pay you is my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I was like, okay, you won that round. That was a way better answer than what I was asking. Thank you.
You learned the Steven Spielberg listening to the coffee guy lesson well.
Oh my God, right? Oh my God. So I go to dinner with Laura. I was like, I spoke to this guy who's more articulate about what I'm doing than I am. And I told her this, and she's like, that's really fucking good. And we're going to sleep, brushing our little teeth, like, in your first night on your honeymoon, your little spa robe, right? And she looks at me and she goes, in yoga, we hear all these like Sanskrit terms, like prana, your life force, and karma, and your dharma. That dude described to you sukha, the feeling of happiness when you're in your lane, doing what you're meant to do, and you're good at it. You're in control of your life. That's what he's trying to tell you is he doesn't want to be more productive. He doesn't want to have distractions, but what he wants is to feel in control of his life because he's good. He's doing the thing he's good at. She's like, you should call it the Sukha Company. And I looked up, and for $14, that website was available, and I bought it. And we went to bed. And that is why we created our company. That is how we named it. And if anyone wants to try it, drop into the group chat and say hi. Say, hey, I heard John Ryan's podcast, baby.
That's awesome. Steven, last question, 30 seconds or less. Your number one tip to help somebody be more consistent or develop consistency?
First thing in the morning, focus on the one thing you have to get done. Wake up in the morning, don't have your coffee, don't go for a run, first thing in the morning, know your intention for that day.
I dig it. Steven, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for hanging out.
This is super fun. Thank you for having me. I hope this is helpful for those playing along at home.
I certainly hope so as well. So everybody listening, thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen so you get notified of new episodes. And if you enjoyed this one, please share it with someone you know who will benefit or enjoy the things that we've talked about today. So that's it. Thank you, Steven. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.